Welcome back to the Basketball Show. I'm Paul Sir. I'm your host, Emma Foose, our guest producer for the day. And I'd like to welcome back to Edmonton Joe Morgan. He's with Fox News Headlines 24/7, Fox News Radio out of Los Angeles. Joe, welcome back to the Great White North.
Hey, Paul. It's great to be back with you. Just sitting down, watching some Pacers Spurs in Paris, which is fantastic, by the way, the second game here. I've really enjoyed it.
We've got it on the screen here in the studio as well, so I must admit I'm glancing up at it. I was commenting in my opening segment, Joe, about Adam Silver coming out, talking about the strong consideration it seems like the NBA has about possible European expansion. The thing about Europe that's interesting is, the Euro League, all of the leagues in the various countries over there are so developed and they have so much tradition around it. It's not soccer, but, in its own right, it has a deep tradition. What do you think the impact would be, not only on the NBA in North America, but bringing the NBA into that European setting?
I mean, the amount of international players that are in the NBA now, the amount of stars, I should say,
yes,
that are in the NBA now. I mean, I have to actually look at it, but, with Jokic and Wembanyama and Luka, I mean, the best players right now really are international. And at some point, you have to think the NBA does something like that. They've obviously wanted, just like all the other, the NFL is the same way, where you want to grow, and the only way to do that is to go global. I think European basketball is amazing. I mean, you see Wembanyama, just watching him, but then he is obviously the future of the NBA. But 20, 30 years ago, we didn't think that a lot of these European players would translate to the NBA, and it's obviously now the complete opposite. And obviously that has something to do with the competition level in Europe. I mean, this is just a side note, but watching Wemby on, I think it was Thursday, I can't believe how developed he is and how good he is. He can do everything, not to mention the defense that he brings to the table in San Antonio, leading the NBA in blocks. But he had a catch in the post off of a bad pass. I haven't seen too many guys make a play like he did on Thursday at his size, at his athletic ability. It's amazing. I think the NBA obviously will seriously look into expanding, somewhere in Europe or whatever they end up doing. But it makes sense to me, Paul.
And I'm conflicted. And the reason I'm conflicted is because I have such a deep respect for the way Europe has handled their basketball development at the highest level, but the way that they start at the grassroots level, there's an orderliness in the way basketball is taught and how kids learn it, how it's coached. And to your point that you made before, Joe, it's no accident that Jokic, Sabonis, Wembanyama, Luka, Antetokounmpo are four of the top six players in the league. And, there's no mistake there. They do all of the things really well, and the way they read and interpret the game along with their skill development, I think, is a testament to what they do over in Europe, whereas in North America, there's a lot of great coaches, there's a lot of great programs, but there's a lot of other stuff in really kind of a Wild West developmental system.
Well, and we've heard, that's an interesting point, Paul. We hear a lot about the AAU here in America, and maybe there's a way to look at what they're doing in Europe to find a better way of developing players, because it's pretty obvious that most of the best players are coming from over there, except, this coming draft with Cooper Flagg out of Duke, we'll see how he translates. But no, it's a decent point. I just think when it comes to these leagues, at some point you have to look that direction in order to expand. The NFL, you would think, would do the same thing with all the games that they have going on in Germany and London. So I just think it's inevitable. And it would be interesting. I've really enjoyed watching these past two games in Paris. The fans are into it.
100%.
I think they're ready for it. So I don't know. I don't know what the time frame would be for that, Paul. I'm sure it would take a lot of time, but I think it would be very interesting to explore.
I think you're right. And when you talk about I mean, the world's so small now with social media, with all of the ways you can consume content of sports, news, whatever your choice is, that it's no longer decades ago where, it was rare that an NBA game would be broadcast overseas. Everybody's watching NBA now. And Paris, like you said, completely into it. And it's a lot of fun to watch. So it's exciting to think about. It really is. So, Joe, let's talk about the NBA right now. There's a couple of there's a couple of stories that I had Ben Golliver on the first show that we had, and we were reflecting on his days with Sports Illustrated, and they had, and maybe they still have, that column of, the apocalypse is upon us. And at that time, the point was the consideration of maybe Phoenix trading Bradley Beal for Jimmy Butler. Talk about Jimmy Butler. Tell me what you think about Jimmy Butler and his shtick and the way we all know about his toughness. We all know about his really difficult upbringing. We all know those things, and I don't want to diminish them. But this guy, when he goes into franchises, he does something that's really, really unusual and honestly really destructive to teams.
Yeah, and he's gotten his way in the past, right? I'm really curious I'm really curious to see how this plays out in Miami. I guess with the structure of the new, NBA with the first and the second apron, Paul, it's not easy to trade these guys, right? So like 5-6 years ago, around the trade deadline, there were guys just moving left and right.
Yeah.
And that doesn't seem to be the case anymore, and it's because of the way that it's been structured. So my question is, I would assume that he would get moved. I would think so. Just because historically, if you look at it, guys that ask out do end up getting their way. And Paul, maybe you can help me with this. I don't see where the trade is. That's what I'm trying to figure out. And I know that there's some teams that have been named on that list. It's Phoenix. I've seen Golden State. I've seen Dallas. I read something the other day on ESPN. I think it was Bobby Marks, who was saying that those three teams right there, if they went to go get Jimmy, they'd have to trade like a quarter of their roster to get him. And so I just don't know how this is going to play out. To go back a little bit, my question is, so he's 35, right? And he wanted that extension in the summer and didn't get it. If you're an NBA team, are you just obligated to give an extension no matter what if a star asks for it? Like regardless of where you're trying to go and the production, et cetera, because Jimmy's still a very good player, no doubt. But he is getting older. He hasn't played more than, I think it's 64 games with the Miami Heat. So it's this interesting situation where there's clearly unhappiness, but he's still under contract. And I don't think that we're living in the same NBA that we were living in 5 years ago, where these moves are as easy as they used to be.
No, I think you nailed it on the head. And when you talk about the NBA 5 years ago, Joe, that's absolutely right. The player power, the ability, and what I find particularly fascinating is this is in Miami with Pat Riley. I mean, that in and of itself is crazy to think about. Pat Riley being challenged by Jimmy Butler. I mean, Jimmy Butler is a great player, or was a great player, but his body's breaking down. Father Time wins every battle. That's going to continue to happen, but. The dissatisfaction when you're being paid tens of millions of dollars is really, really hard, I think, for most NBA fans to stomach.
Sure.
And Butler's consistent problems, whether it was Minnesota, whether it was Philadelphia, now it's Miami. Leopard doesn't change its spots. And I don't know where the deal is unless you're going to do some sort of swap with Phoenix with the other problem child, who is Bradley Beal, who is he and Butler should be having coffee every day because they could commiserate because they're both equally miserable. So I want to jump over to the 76ers now, and I'm talking with Joe Morgan from Fox News Headlines 24/7 and Fox News Radio out of Los Angeles here on the Basketball Show. Let's talk about the Sixers. They had a nice win last night. They beat the Cleveland Cavaliers without Joel Embiid. And I think we were both ready and probably still are ready to hop on the world of the Sixers trying to do pile. But tell me your overarching view. Like I always go back to this nonsense about the process and Embiid's.
Yep.
I mean, it's great. It would have been great if it worked, and it sure as heck hasn't worked because that poor guy's body just betrays him every time. But talk about the 76ers. What do you think their next moves are?
I look. They're in a situation. Paul, coming back from the summer, right, where I was definitely a person who thought with the Paul George acquisition that they would be able to compete in that Eastern Conference with Maxey and Embiid. But everything hinges on Joel Embiid being healthy. And he just hasn't been throughout his career. And so if you're looking at the Sixers situation, it's a brutal situation because Joel signed that extension in the summer. Obviously, you have Paul George signing with them in the summer. I don't know what the move is. The question now is, I don't know if it's 2 or 2.5 games back of the final play-in spot in the Eastern Conference. Do you make a run to try to get into the play-in, or are you looking to protect that top 6 protected draft pick that they have? I would think that if Joel finds his way to get healthy, you have to go for it, right? Because you have all this talent on the team. It's obviously not a good situation, Paul. And I don't even think if you get into that play-in, do we really think that they're making a deep run in the playoffs if somehow they get miraculously healthy, right? If everybody's there, I just don't think you have enough time now to gel as a unit with the new addition of Paul George, either to make a run in the Eastern Conference. I think the Celtics are very clearly, they look like they're on cruise control. Cleveland is, I can't believe how good they are. And the Milwaukee is obviously playing quite a bit better. So I just don't think Philly has a chance of making a run in the playoffs as currently constructed. But I almost think you have to go for it if Joel Embiid if something happens with Joel where like he's out for the year or something, then I totally would get it. But I think at this point you almost have to make a run at it.
Well, I think so too, Joe, and I think you summarized it really, really well what their challenge is. The thing I always go back to with the NBA is it's such a marathon. You know, the season's so bloody long.
Yeah.
There's a hypothetical.
Probably too long, Paul.
That would be a great discussion. I would have no pushback from me about the season being too long. But I also look at like Joel now, like 5 games from now, Joel Embiid gets healthy, stays healthy the rest of the way. Paul George gets back into playing like Paul George would be expected to play. Right. Maxey's a great player. He's a talent. He's a real talent. Now you've got your 3. Maybe, and, Philadelphia started out dismally. Embiid got healthy. They had a pretty good run. Embiid is not healthy. George is hurt. Like they have all these, just the nasty injuries. But now it'll be interesting to see as the season unfolds, and you encapsulated it really well. As Joel Embiid's health goes, so go the 76ers and what their strategy should be for the rest of the year.
Yep. Well, and you got to think it's just so interesting when you look back on it now with the Clippers going the direction that they went and not giving George that 4th year, I think is really interesting too. We started having these conversations once again. We go back to the Jimmy Butler thing, about giving guys who are getting up there in age these big extensions, and does that end up backfiring? And, right now you got to think for Philly, it hasn't worked out. I think it's going to be super interesting to see what they end up doing. And look, it is a shame, by the way, Paul, that Joel can't stay healthy, because when he is healthy, I mean, he's so dominant. He's so dominant. And I do think that if he's a guy who, when you get to the playoffs, that knee is okay, it's hard for me to count that guy out. I will say that. But it's just, you can't, there's no confidence in that he's going to be healthy come playoff time. It's just, you can't say that just historically.
100%. Well, Joe, unfortunately, we're out of time. I'd love to get you back on and spend the segment on just Los Angeles, the Clippers and the Lakers.
Sure.
Because I think it would be a fascinating discussion with the new facility for the Clippers, LeBron at 40, like that's a book that I'd love love to write with you in a show in the near upcoming future. So I'll be in touch with you soon. But man, is it great to connect with you again. Thanks so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me on, Paul. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, Joe Morgan, Fox Headline News, also Fox Radio in Los Angeles, joining us here on the Basketball Show. We're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to be speaking with Reed Clark, the CEO of Sport Edmonton, also of his Fresh Nets Foundation. And we're going to be talking about a lot of things, not just